In a post-truth reality, who will save the world, uncover the mysteries of the universe and build a vast multimedia empire to rival the likes of Genghis Khan? Join these two Aussie meat robots as they thrash out the weird and wonderful, the classified and supernatural, as well as their own inconceivable adventures on the podcast you had to have and never thought you needed. It's time for Hidden in Plain Sight.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Hidden in Plain Sight, our second official episode, if you disregard the pilot. Completely official. We've been officiated upon by something.
Yeah, you know, it's that podcast where we talk about some strange things that happen to us and happen to other people. And tonight we're going to be talking about an experience that you had, I believe.
Yes, we will be. And you have to excuse my nasally voice tonight. I'm not putting that on. It's summer allergies, funnily enough.
No, it is funny because you live in Czech Republic, which is in Central Europe, but you never had allergies when you lived in Australia.
Apparently I did. So I spoke to my mum recently and I said, it's weird that I never had allergies and I developed allergies in my late 20s. And she said, what are you talking about? When you were a kid, you used to have to take pills every spring because you had really bad spring allergies. But I remember her taking me to Nepean Hospital because I stuffed two. Do you remember those, what were they called? Fantails. Fantail lollies.
Yeah.
So caramel like cobbers, but caramel chocolate coated, and you open them up and they had like question and facts about.
They were like movies. You'd eat them at the movies. Fantail.
Yeah. And they had like question and facts. They don't have fantails anymore.
No, they finished a couple of years ago. They were
the best.
News.
And you could stuff those wrappers way up in your nose. So I remember we were driving past Springwood Golf Course, and it's weird I tell this story. It's unintentional, but it's actually right next to where I had my experience. I remember driving past Springwood Golf Course. My sisters were in the car. Mum and Dad were in the front. And we're driving down the hill past it. And I was eating the fantails, and I looked at the wrapper, and something struck my mind. And it was like, I wonder if that will fit in my nose.
Can I ask? How old were you at the time?
6.
Okay. All right.
5, 6, 5.
Yeah. All right.
Something like this. Maybe even 4. Like, it was pretty young. And so I've just gone, so I made a little, log out of it, and I stuffed it in my nose, and I went, it does fit. I wonder if I can fit another one in there. So I've got the other one and stuffed the other one in, and I'm sitting in the back of the car. Just probably making some weird. And my sisters have gone, oh my God, Josh has stuffed something in his nose. Mum's turned around and go, oh my God. And she's pulled the first one out. But the first one stuffed the second one way up in the back.
Shit.
And she's freaking out. I'm there. I start freaking out. So she drops everyone home. And her and myself, we first went to the doctor in Springwood. A doctor's had some tools. He's gone, I can't pull that out. It was wedged. Like, wait, he's going to go, like, it's going to be. So Mum then takes me to Nepean Hospital. So we go to Nepean Hospital and they pull it out, like bled a lot. It was stuffed like way up over the back. So anyway. So that was the first weird experience I had near Springwood Cemetery.
No, let's just hold up a sec. Do you think that might be the cause of your allergies? Do you think that fantail adventure could possibly be the genesis of your spring allergies?
It could have been, or I could have touched something in my brain. It was a partial lobotomy, so I've probably switched something on or off, which makes a lot of sense too.
My brain hurts! I wonder how many people just stopped listening to the podcast because they knew that 6-year-old Josh was busy sticking I
think I was younger.
His nose.
Well, I've done some weird I did something like that when you and we did a school review together, a show. Yes. We were there backstage at Springwood High. Yeah. Listening to Primus. I just discovered Seas of Cheese by Primus, rocking out.
Great album.
And they had a dressing room and they had all those actors' mirrors with the lights around them. And there was only a couple of bulbs in each kind of fixture. And my brain did the same thing I did when I was a kid. Can I put this in my nose? My brain went, how does the electricity know to only go to the places where there's lights in it? So I just stuck my finger straight in. You're sitting beside me doing something, and I've just gone like, dish, boom. I've got fucking, oh shit. And you go, dude, you all right? I'm just like, dude, I just did the silliest thing. And you were freaked out. I was freaked. It was funny.
Yeah, I've done that. We used to have Baker light switches in the old place in Valley Heights.
Yeah, with
I used
the exposed metal.
yeah, I unscrewed one and I was like, yeah,
Yep.
I got a big shock.
I'll crack on with the story. So I guess this story, I preface it by saying to this day, I'm not sure if it is a ghost story, a UFO story, a spiritual story, or all of the above.
So, as far as I know, this story happened 1998. Is that right?
I'm going to say autumn 1998. I get mixed
Yeah.
up. I'm in Europe, so it's the opposite. It's around that time because I was hanging out with, we're not going to mention the person's name. I hope we've recently reconnected with the person I was with, and we're hoping that we can talk to
Let's
this
say
person
our mate.
because
Our mate.
our mate. So our mate, I had, so this, like I said, this experience is ghost, UFO, spiritual, all mixed up into one. The thing that makes it special is not only, in my own personal opinion, it's the most powerful and esoteric experience that I have had in my 46 years on this planet, but I had it with somebody else.
You did have it with somebody else, and in a way, it completely changed your life and may possibly
And this other
change
person's.
our mate's life as well.
I like this because it was a shared experience. I've had lots of experiences that I could class as, let's say, supernatural, spiritual, any and all of the above. But this one is quite significant because it was visual, oral, it was emotional, it was everything in one. And it happened at a place called Springwood Cemetery, very close to our high school that we went to, very close to where you're sitting
I'm living
now.
right now.
And just close to where I stuffed a fantail up my nose. So this one of our mates in high school killed himself in year 9. Yeah. And he was John Reed. You actually previously mentioned him. It was John I was sitting with when I first met you, and I was throwing glue into your hair. We were the Abbott and Costello in that scenario. We stop at Springwood Cemetery with our mate. I'm in the car. It's he and I. It's late evening. And I hadn't visited John's grave for a little while. So I said, hey, why don't we stop off, check out John's grave? And during this process, we start to discuss these things, life and death, and, we're on that topic. We pull into the car park. I think we got some images and stuff we can show people, but it's just a gravel car park with a simple wood fence. It's a small local cemetery. On one side, there's a golf course. Behind, there's a residential road. And we just pulled off. There's no other cars in the place. We get out the car, we walk down to John's grave, we check it out, we start discussing school and mates and energy and all of that stuff. And as we're coming back to the car, we start to discuss working with energy. So it was something that was a little foreign to me at this point. Mm-hmm. But our mate was talking about some stuff that you and he were sharing together, which was to do with, there was a thing about feeling an energy between your hands.
Yeah.
So a kind of a magnetism, a thing where you can feel it repel, like you got a balloon or a ball. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow. So we started to play with that. I was like, wow, yeah, I can kind of feel it, and we started to discuss the idea of ley lines. And that was when I was introduced to that idea, or this idea of a grid that goes around the world and this green energy. And so we're discussing this. During this time, it's gotten dark, and we go back and we sit in the car. We were sitting having this discussion, and at some point, the first thing that happened was that this noise had started, but it's something you write off. We were so used to, on bin night, hearing someone wheel a bin out down the road. It's just one of those sounds that recognized but kind of didn't. The first thing that was recognized was 3 knocks, and it was on the floor of the car. Mm. So there was just like dink, dink, dink. And we were still talking, so I didn't pay attention. I heard the knock, but I thought our mate had tapped his foot on the bottom of the car, like on the floor of the car. I didn't really think about it. It was distinguishable sound. And we carried on. And then I would say a short time later, it's difficult to put all this into time, which I'll explain in the end. Another tap happened. But at this point, when the tap happened, both of us stopped. And I said, was that you? Because this time was a little louder, a little bit more vibrant. And I was actually looking at him at the time as we were discussing this, and he didn't move. And I said, did you tap before? And he said, I thought you did. So in this moment, we're starting to go, right. And it was the sound of what I can equate it to as someone either taking a small rock and tapping it on the bottom chassis of the car. It was on metal. So it wasn't on carpet, which is inside. It was on metal. 3 knocks, dink, dink, dink. And it was definitely coming from under us. And at this point, I'm looking at him going, stop messing about. He's looking at me going, come on, man, what are you doing? That's, how are you doing this? And everything happened really quickly, or so it felt from this moment. As we're looking at each other, I say to him, what's that sound? So the sound of the wheelie bin has now gone from what was just some wheelie bin in the distance to something that's like coming. It's grumbling like thunder. It's getting louder and louder. And I said, what is that noise? And he's like, I don't know. So at that moment, 3 knocks happen again, even louder this time. Ding, ding, ding. Like someone's really smacking the bottom of the car. And at this moment, both of us start to go, what is this? The car starts to shake with the sound. So the car itself starts doing this. And we're sitting there going, what? And then what felt like all of a sudden, everything stopped. Boom, this light came on. And I felt like I'd just gone underwater. I literally felt like everything slowed down. And at the moment the light came on, all sounds went off. And I felt like I was euphoric. Instantly, immensely euphoric. I've never experienced euphoria like this in my life, since or before. My processes of thinking changed. Everything in one moment shifted. And I remember I felt the light, saw the light. I remember looking down at my hands first and doing this and noticing that I was completely illuminated. And I looked ahead and I turned to look at our mate and I noticed he was completely illuminated. Like the first thing I noticed, there was no shadow. Like there's no shadow under the chin. There was no shadow under the hand. It was just And then I slowly turned my head back, and then it occurred to me, where is this light coming from? So I turned my head. The window of the car is here, and for some reason I just thought I will just try and look. So the window's closed, so I'm kind of squeezing my head against the window and just looking up, and all I can see the kind of dome of the light,
Right.
but I can't see anywhere that this light is coming from. And immediately my mind is half trying to think, man, where is it coming from? Is this some prank or is what's going on? And the other half of me is just swimming. I'm somewhere else. I'm like on another planet. And so at that moment I think, okay, I like what to do now. Like what's going on? So I'm there. So all of a sudden I go to wind the window down.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to wind the window down. I don't think about opening the door. I don't know. It's just all happening so slowly. Anyway, at one moment I'm just kind of thinking, I need to find out what this is. Maybe I need to talk to our mate. And all of a sudden it just stops. Shoop. The light's gone. And immediately the euphoria, gone. Everything, the euphoria is not gone, but the state of feeling like I was underwater is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing I did was just like go, whoa, I wound the window down really fast. And I went, oh, my brain started working. Just open the door. I open the door, jump out of the car, and I look. Like, where's the light? Where's the people playing a prank on us? And all of a sudden, everything was quiet. Like super quiet. And then all of a sudden I started to hear insects again. And I started to hear the sound of the night, right. Normal Blue Mountains night come back. The occasional car go down the main road that's 50 meters away. And I'm going, and our mate jumps out of the car. I'm like, dude. So I'm expecting to see some halogen work light above us that was just there, or I don't know, nothing. There's no light fixtures anywhere. There's no one on the road around us. There's no one hiding behind trees. And I went, first thought was, where's the wheelie bin? Who's wheeling the bin out? And then we went into this panicked euphoria. We weren't scared. Or I could speak for myself, but I didn't get the feeling our mate was scared either. We were just in this kind of adrenaline fueled, what just happened? What was that? And at that point, I remember looking at the car, and the time was about 10:20. It was just after 10 o'clock. So this whole experience, I can't tell for sure if an hour happened and it felt like 2 minutes. I can't say that for sure. But what I can say is the sound of the rumbling started, and by the time we heard the first knock, we're talking probably about 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Right.
So it was a long rumbling, but we only recognized that afterwards once we discussed both of our recollection of the event. And then after the first knock, there was probably about 2-3 minutes before the second knocking, and that's when we both paid attention. And it felt like as we paid attention and started to recognize something was going on, someone turned the volume up. And as they turned the volume up, about 2-3 minutes later, or not even, maybe 2 minutes, the third knocking under the car and the rumbling of the car. And then when the light came on, that was probably all happened within about 30 seconds.
Right.
So up until that point, the time seems clear.
Mm.
But from the point the light came on to the point the light came off, everything changed. That was just another space, another place. So that's the nutshell.
That's your story in a nutshell. So why don't we just take a little moment to grab a drink of water and let's ask a few questions.
There will now be a short intermission.
All right, we're back. Crazy story, man.
Yeah, pretty out there, dude.
Yeah, very, very crazy story. So I got a couple of questions.
Go for it.
What do you think it was?
Man, at the time...
It sounds like UFO. I mean, this is like your classic UFO, encounter, close encounter or something like this.
At the time, like when I realized there was no light source anywhere near us, my mind automatically went to something was illuminating us from above. I don't know why. Felt like something that was unseen was illuminating us from above.
Right.
But that was just the brain thinking that way, which kind of tends towards UFO. I don't have a genuine, I don't feel that it was ghostly. So even though we're in a cemetery, ironically, and I don't feel that it was the soul of our past mate coming to share something with us, I never felt it was that. It may have been. I never felt it was that. It certainly wasn't a prank. That was debunked the moment I got out of the car. There was nobody around. And if you see the pictures of Springwood Cemetery, like if someone was coming or going, you would see them from a distance. It's not like unless it was a bunch of ninjas, 20 ninjas sneaking up and bringing like magical lights. The thing that occurs to me most about the story, so the car shaking was one thing.
Yeah.
The kind of, just to paint the picture, the car shaking would be as if you had 4 or 5 people on the car, one on each corner, shaking, pushing the car.
Yeah, so I mean,
it wasn't just this. It was violent.
Yeah, because there is a phenomena called earthquake lights.
Yes.
So lights can occur when there is some sort of atmospheric pressure change, when there's an earthquake. I did do a bit of research because we've talked about this story before, and there are no earthquakes listed at that time in Australia, anywhere close by. And Australia is not a very earthquake prone area. I mean, we're one, I mean, I think the continent is like one gigantic tectonic plate, so it doesn't have fault lines like other parts of the world
running through it.
So I think we can rule out earthquake lights. It's not aurora borealis or something. I don't know.
Well, the odd thing about there's lots of odd things, but the odd thing in an argument about earthquake or anything natural is the timing, because whether it was an extreme coincidence, it felt like as our mate and myself actually focused on it more, it became more intense.
Okay, so
from an oral perspective, from the sound, from the shaking of the car, it all seemed to, the more that we went, what is this? It went, whoa.
Okay, so the thing that you were doing with our mate together was some sort of energetic sharing of energy together. You're doing some handwork, was feeling some frequencies or some sort of vibration together, and then.
Well, from my point of view, it was like experimenting with it. I was not sure. I mean, I was not against it, but I was very skeptical. I was like, yeah, okay, I can kind of feel it, but my brain was still like, yeah, it's not real. You know what I mean? Like
you're playing, in a way, experimenting with energy, and then it's almost as if you're summoning or manifesting
very possible
particular experience. Can I ask?
Possible.
You didn't mention what color the light was. Is it red? Is it white? Is it gold?
So the light was like what I could say white purple. So it was like a very light violet
Mm,
and super intense.
okay.
Like, looking back on it, the idea that the light source was coming anywhere from outside of the car is pretty much impossible unless we were surrounded by light, because everything was illuminated. There was no shadow. That's one thing I remember very, very clearly. There was no shadow in the whole car. It was like I was glowing, and so
Right.
was our mate.
This is very interesting because just recently I met with a GP that practices holistic medicine. They do a whole bunch of nutrition to help treat a whole bunch of different conditions.
Hmm.
Anyway, we're talking about frequencies and how frequencies can be tuned to certain organs to help treat. So, sound therapy is something that has been practiced for a very long period of time, thousands and thousands of years. People
Oh
have known
yeah,
about it for a very
exactly.
long time. But until sort of the modern kind of quantum science era, there hasn't been an understanding of how these frequencies work. Now they're
Exactly.
starting to figure it out. Like, and so you've got
Yes.
GPs that are going, actually, what we want to do to treat this particular organ is play a certain frequency to help treat it. Now, it's not every GP, it's not every medical practitioner, but this
No.
person is well respected in their field and obviously able to practice in this particular way. The interesting thing that I asked her during our consultation, I said, look, it's interesting you're talking about frequencies. They're matching up to chakra points. What you're
Hmm.
talking about there are different. And she said, well, yeah, that's the ancient thought behind it is chakra points, which comes from India. And the highest chakra point, the color that's associated with the highest chakra point, which is about transcendence between the human expression and I guess the divine expression,
Whatever's
is a white
beyond. Yeah.
purple light.
Yes.
So they all have colors. So I'm really curious to see if there's any sort of parallel between that and what you're manifesting, because you say that your experience is quite euphoric. What was it like? What was the experience
Hey.
emotionally like for our mate that was sitting with you? Did he
Um,
describe what it was like? His
I
feeling.
I noticed we both. The best way I can explain it is we both look like babies. When you see a picture of a baby with that look of joy on their face that
It's like,
they've just, I don't know, farted or something, or someone gave him a toy, and that was what. As I slowly, everything I say underwater is because I didn't feel the pressure of water. I just felt my movements were extremely slow.
right.
Everything had slowed down. So when I consciously looked at my hands, it felt like my hands were coming up at this kind of pace. And when I consciously went to turn my head, it was kind of like this. It took a long time. And our mate just had this euphoric, just joyous
Mm,
look on his face. Um, and when everything kind of went back to normal, the adrenaline, when I say adrenaline, it's like something amazing had just happened. You're running around going, oh my God, this was, oh, what just happened? Wow, this was great. And we both had that. We both had this very positive glow.
and from this point, it seemed like that you changed direction. It seems like something shifted in you at this point in your life. Do you feel like this is a turning point for you?
I can discuss some stuff in hindsight and some stuff at the time. So at the time, it was, I think my brain was doing two things. My brain was blown, or my whole understanding of how things worked had just changed
Mm,
immediately.
mm,
But also, another part of my brain was consciously trying to battle it and saying, no, it didn't happen.
right.
Or, no, it did happen, but if something weird was going to happen, it would be much more profound. And I don't even know what that means. Like, if I tell someone this story, it's a pretty profound experience, but the brain is going, but there was no Godzilla. There was no
Yeah, yeah, right.
things weren't coming out of the thing. You know what I mean? Like, there was none of that. Like, so therefore, it can't be that experience. And to be honest, I had no coping mechanism, if that's the right word, because there was no, I had no precedent for this.
Mm,
I didn't know anything about the color of the, I found that out after I spoke to a few different people. So
mm.
I found a few people in the community, some people that I guess were, I knew did yoga and stuff and went
Yeah,
to
yeah.
kind of meditations and talked about that stuff. So those were the people I naturally went to and shared the experience. Almost all of them appeared to have two reactions. One was, I kind of don't believe you, or the second was, holy shit, really? That was and these were people that I thought were
Yeah.
somewhere else, like And then I come to realize, okay, these are kind of normal people too, just kind of working stuff out. But some of the information I got was, yeah, that the color light you saw is associated with this particular thing. Never heard of a chakra in my life.
Interesting.
Like,
So just to share just a couple of like observations around this particular experience, this could possibly be some sort of psychedelic experience as well. So were you
seems
using
like.
mushrooms or LSD or any other
No,
kind of hallucinogenic substances that night so that you could
no.
hallucinate?
So from a kind of, when I say young age, but around that time, used to smoke a bit of bushweed. That's about as exotic as anything got. Occasionally drink some goon sack, bit of wine.
Bit of wine. So this is so having drunk wine and smoked weed, this is not an experience that is likely to happen when you smoke these things.
No,
Um,
never. And I've done many, many things since to various psychedelics. Nothing, nothing has ever. I've had some pretty crazy experiences, but this particular experience, nothing has ever been so enveloping.
So the other thing I want to share is that a couple of people I met with recently, one that we've both known for a very long period of time, local Springwood resident, same area that you had this experience.
Yes.
He vouched for your experience. He said this is
Okay.
what it is. He's had many encounters. Well, I'm hoping he will join us at one point to have a
Great.
conversation about some of his ideas. But he certainly vouched for your experience. But then I met this quite bizarrely, I met this very interesting person that was sort of in between things. Was a local resident, had lived in Springwood for a long time, but had been traveling away. Had a long conversation. And this guy was a bit off the wall, to be honest. But when I started talking, we spoke to him on the phone. I had you on the phone. We spoke to him together
Yeah.
for a bit,
Absolutely.
and
Very interesting dude.
yeah, very interesting guy. And he mentioned about seeing those lights in 98. He said it was
Yeah.
1998, and he saw them from Springwood Station with a group of other people
Wow.
in the distance. So it sounds like there was more than just one person that may have seen what was going on, but that he volunteered that piece of information without me talking about your story. So I just
Yeah,
said, my
that's
friend,
really interesting.
yeah, well, I just said to him, I said, my friend had a experience in 1998 that was quite strange, and he said, "Oh, those lights over the over the golf course, which is next to the cemetery." And I
Which
was
you can
like,
see if you're on
"Which,
the station, it's like right there,
well, yeah, if you're
just in the
looking into the
distance over
sky,
the
you could
thing.
see it. You
Yeah.
could see because you can see the park that's over the, and
Well,
yeah, so that's pretty. It's pretty
look,
interesting. There's a couple of people out there that's had sort of, yeah,
I can
vouching for
say
that kind of thing.
the question of what changed for me in hindsight is very, very clear. So it changed the entire course of my life without me understanding it at the time.
Right.
So before that, I was never someone who was really intended on anything other than I was quite what I would call insular
Yep.
in my way of thinking and dealing with things, with what I desired, what I didn't desire. There was all of this kind of stuff. And I never really, we've discussed this, went to Catholic school. I heard all the walk on water stuff and all the stories, but it just, for me, it was somewhere over there. It was all someone else who had those experiences.
Right.
Um,
And it's
and that, but
interesting
that,
that you say that because we went to a Catholic school where people did have halos over their head in the pictures. There were lights in
yeah,
the sky. There was all that kind of stuff going on.
yeah,
And I think actually my son Patrick, he put me onto this. He said, have a look at the original descriptions of what angels look like.
yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
and he showed me a picture of them and I was like, oh, that doesn't look like what we grew up looking at. And he says, well,
No, that's
yeah, it's
not those
pretty
little
weird that
cherubim.
that's the light that comes out of the sky. They look these strange shapes. Or I was like,
Yep.
oh, that's a very strange
Well,
parallel.
as part of all this, which will take me onto that tangent, there's so my what I here's I'm going to throw a crazy idea out there, which a lot of people might actually initially balk at.
Okay, go for it.
From right now, as a 46-year-old person who's had a bunch of different experiences, many conversations, and traveled a fair bit, I feel the experience I had in Springwood Cemetery was a connection and download, is the best way I can explain it.
And
So,
that's very interesting that you should say that. And I'll tell you why in a moment. But you tell me your
well,
reason.
I felt like what happened at that time was I connected to a Wi-Fi, a network, an ether, a something. And in that moment, a whole bunch of stuff was shared with me. So that point where time slowed and euphoria happened, something was being uploaded, downloaded, cross-loaded, whatever.
Yeah.
I was experiencing what I would consider a different state, a different realm, a different reality, multiple different realities. But I wasn't able to necessarily see it, but how it presented to me as visually was this light. And that was
Okay.
what I was able to see.
So,
The atmosphere
yeah.
was viscous. It was thick. It was like I was in an embryo of something, like I was in a uterus state. It was strange.
So they talk about this idea of connection to people seeing light is not necessarily, it's happened throughout history. There have been many people that
Yes.
have revelations of light. Sometimes they call them epiphanies, which is a sudden and profound realization of great truth. Now, I got that
Yes.
definition from the Simpsons movie, just to put it out there. Yeah. I'm just going to stick this up now. It's a quote from Dreams and Reflections by Carl Jung, and he talks about seeing these lights and how we interpret them in the technological age as being something to do with some sort of alien technology or
That was
UFO
my thought process.
because we
Yeah.
live in an age of technology. So that's how we
Yes.
interpret it. However, if we're in another period of time, we'd see it as something else and
Yes.
interpret it in a different way. So it's,
Uh,
you know, if you talk about Jung, Jung is a, you know, extraordinarily well-renowned psychiatrist and, you know, inventor of, I guess, modern psychology in many different ways and dreams and, you know, looking at symbolism and all this kind of stuff. He can be a bit out there and woo-woo for people, but this is not a unique experience, but
no.
still
And
feels like it's strange to say I had this and you go, well,
something you touched on,
you're
and
making it
that's
up.
exactly what I wanted to comment on. People are very good at being isolated now. People are very good at ridiculing others. People are very good at winning or trying to win. And the concept of winning is to beat, to be better than.
Yeah.
And I don't think the concept initially was so one sided. I think we've moved away from, so directly in this situation, it's a prejudice that's been educated into my system to think that's technology. Now, some people might be watching this going, of course you would think, of course it's like that, but that's how it is. But that means we're narrowly mindedly thinking only about here and now. We're not thinking about 100, 200, 1,000 years ago. We're not
Or
realizing these stories have been being repeated through history. I had no idea till after it happened. And then the amount of time my story I have heard recounted on television or written in a book, almost exactly to the same process, has blown my mind. I've gone, wow, this
Let
isn't isolated. It's
okay.
very common.
Okay, so let I want to focus in on a couple of things right now. So first of all, the download experience that you're talking about.
Yes.
Very interestingly, our good friend who's lived in Springwood for a very long time, when he shared some of his experience when I told him about yours, he said he had a very similar experience as a child, and he
Yes.
describes it exactly as a download.
Yep.
A download of knowledge, of
Hmm.
receiving some sort of form of knowledge, and it's happened to him multiple times. And this guy is kind of off the charts, Mensa style, intelligent, but very,
Yep.
very advanced kind of mathematical mind. And he says that moment as a child was a download for him. The other thing I'd say is that your experience is one of being of euphoria. However,
Hmm.
there is this paper, which I'm going to show now, the Immaculate Constellation finding that was tabled at the United States congressional hearing in November 2024. And
Hmm.
basically, it's an investigation into all the different types of what they call UAPs,
Yep.
aerial phenomena that comes from,
Unidentified aerial phenomena. Yeah.
yeah, non-human intelligence. And it talks
Hmm.
about describing these lights that people see. But very interestingly here, it says that most people experience something that creates a sense of anxiety.
Hmm.
However, this particular guy that had the experience inside a helicopter had the same feeling as you had.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Extreme
so
euphoria.
much. yeah, like euphoric, but also a feeling of great, profound love,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
yeah,
really
absolutely.
changed and
That's the in
moved
utero
you.
thing. It
Yeah.
felt like in utero. It felt like I was right now back in a womb somewhere, like just being nurtured and taken care of, and everything just completely isolated from anything that might be scary or horrible.
So I know that you've spent a bit of time looking at all this kind of stuff. What do you think differentiates the experience of some people feeling like a loving, euphoric experience, and some people having
Whew.
terror or being filled with fear or being filled with anxiety and dread about this experience?
Like what my instinct is telling me, or my instinct is something that I connect my instinct and imagination to this point in time,
Right.
because I feel what this point in time did was reopen my imagination, which had completely almost closed off or become completely technologized. It became a piece of technology for our
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Um, and I believe the imagination turns into instinct. And instinct is not just, oh, I think this happened. Instinct, I think, is a tool of interpretation. So we present ourselves with a bunch of topics, education, and ideas. And when no one else has the answer, some of us have to find it. And that's why I equate us to explorers, because we then must use the best of our ability
Mm,
and our instinct to
mm,
find the way. Now, this may not be the answer, but what I consider this is it's very personally based. On that night, I was completely open. I was fresh. Even though I say I was skeptical to this one, I was also hoping it was real. Part of me was going, yeah, and the other part of me was going, fuck, I hope this is real. I hope this is actual, because it will make a lot of sense about a lot of stuff. And then the experience happened. So I think when it actually happened, there was a little panic going into it. When you're hearing knocking, there's a car shaking, there's a noise. Um, so my answer comes from both sides. I think whatever the light was, the intent or the feeling of that light was literally nurturing.
mm,
But I think both of us had gone into this space open armed, open
mm.
minded, open hearted. So that was the reflection it had on us. So I don't have I have an instinctual opinion, but there's no definite answer to that.
It's funny you talk about this idea of a light and be surrounded by it, and what you said is like a cylinder, like a orb or a sphere. Sorry, it's a sphere of
It
light
was a
around you.
semicircle. So I could see the circle outline on the ground, and I could see
Mm.
how it was a circle above us. So it was like a dome. Dunk.
Well, yes, I think when it comes to like talking about a person's energetic body,
Hmm.
and what might some people might refer to as a spirit or a soul or an aura. Like oftentimes when we think about like where's my spirit, where's my soul, and we've talked about this, is that it's
Yeah.
something that's inside
In
you.
us. Yeah.
But what if it is something that's outside
Out
you,
of us.
like some sort of sphere of light that we can't see? And this is, people talk about seeing auras, and interestingly, talking to that eccentric fellow in Springwood that night only a few months back, who saw the lights in 1998 at the same time as you saw them.
Yeah.
Um, when when I first approached him, he then later revealed to me that he could see the aura that I had around me, which was a purple green color, and he was
Uh huh.
talking about my aura. Now, the reason I mention that is I just did this pretty fantastic arts workshop on the weekend, run by a friend of mine, Kate Sherman, was looking at what's called viewpoints technique, which is kind of like a physical theater or a movement of theater approach to art or creating
Yeah.
stories. And very interestingly, she was talking about the kinesphere, which is a energetic body around you that you create
Yes.
with and you shape with. And so this is something in arts practice that you need to be open and available to the energy of
Absolutely.
other people. And it was really interesting seeing a group of strangers working together, 12 strangers essentially working together in a sphere, sorry, in a theater, allowing their energies to interact with each other in a very deep and
Yep.
purposeful way. And I noticed that there were like shapes and collections of people that were transcending and going through all elements of the human condition in one particular day. And I was like, this is really fascinating. Like, we're able to transcend and let go of like the here and now, the day to day, all the social
Yes.
norms of I'll shake your hand, we don't do this, to be suddenly embracing each other and close to each other and connecting to each other in a way that felt very intimate, but without the kind of
Well,
awkwardness of like it being creepy or anything like this, just really open. And I think, is that not what the I guess this material world, and this is maybe making a bit too big a statement, but is it not what the material world is kind of shutting us off from,
well,
which
it
is
is.
this
When
opportunity to connect with each other?
and is it intentional or not? I think the statement is not. I think it's not so bold. I think it's actually the correct way to picture it. And the question is it intentional or not? Because if we go to work every day, we're living in fear, worried about bills, worried about this, we're jealous, we're all of this stuff.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
not living in a resonant space where we're healthy. We're just not. Like all of this stuff, all of these, ironically, a lot of these ideas I have not garnered these from books or from other people. This is why I say it was a download of information. I started to my imagination and instinct started to tell me things like the soul is not in the body, like they taught me at Catholic school. The soul, we're living inside it, and our flesh bot, our meat robot,
Get
is
the
working
t-shirt.
inside this sphere exactly of like a robot that is being manipulated and manifested by. But this is nothing new. This is what I discovered after having these
Right.
kind of thoughts, then reading things, listening to things, discovered a great many theories. I discovered a great many things that just occurred to me were real. And I don't say that in sense of, oh, gee, how switched on or intelligent am I? My concept of winning is not to beat another. It's about sharing. It's about a
Mm,
collective.
mm.
And in the collective, we say it's something along the lines of Nikola Tesla, when Nikola would say, I did not invent any of these. I cannot sell it. I don't own it. I can just share it. And he would talk about going into a dream state where things were shared with him. There's a great many people through history. I know there's a few that we know about, Da Vinci and Tesla and a lot of these people, but there's people like you and I. These things are happening to, or if we're allowed to find the space, they just may. So the energy work you're talking about, man, before a couple of hundred years, before a few centuries, this was normal in lots of cultures.
Mm.
Religions, the religious beliefs, the natural beliefs, the connections of people, we were using sound for healing. We were using energy bodies and connections and understanding what people were good at, what they weren't good at, what we're kind of meant to do based on who we are, not based on someone just squeezing us into a fucking box.
Mm.
And so the idea of things having resonance, I will find and we'll put it up. The color of light I'm talking about, I can find the exact frequency that this light is purported to reverberate at. And it does it because it's got a wavelength.
Right.
When
Obviously,
we
yes.
say energy, we're not talking about something that's not measurable. We're talking about sound has a distance between its peak and its trough. Light, the reason it has a certain color is because it's existing in a certain vibration. So it's very real that certain chakras. So India, a lot of Asian cultures, a lot of ancient American Indian cultures, Mexican cultures, they had their versions of chakras. They had their versions. We look at a mandala and we say, oh, gee, that's a pretty picture.
Mm.
Whereas if you understand where the mandalas come from, they're songs, they're stories.
Mm.
They're a depiction of a shape and an energy.
Mm.
It's not just a tourist attraction. And that's where we've gotten lost. That's where us as the common, we're buying, we're sharing, we're getting to our destination. Once we get to we don't want the journey. We get to the spot, we take a selfie there, and then we go, well, what do we do now? Let's go have sex or have lunch. Okay, let's do both. It's like, what? All right,
Uh,
great.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
fuck.
great. So there are many things that are creating a block in us to be available and open. What do you think it was that night that made you open to this particular, you and our mate, open to that experience happening?
Because we were talking about life and death. We were talking about someone we knew that had passed on, And I think that certainly at that age, I really didn't understand it. Like I knew some old people that had died, and that was where you just go, oh, someone says they're old, they die. But this wasn't that. This is someone who made a choice. This is someone who said, I'm fucking out of here.
Mm.
And I think that at that age, you're still developing lots of stuff I think both of us, or at least I was I was questioning,
Mm.
but I was also open. I just didn't get it. And that was the point to visit the place. That's why I visited often. It wasn't to visit and go, oh, hi, John, how you doing, mate? It was more like, you're there, but you're not there. And I'm here. Am I here? It's one of those moments, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that certainly must have helped. I figure that helped in this process. I'd love to hear from our mate who was there. We don't know. Look, I do know that this affected him after reconnecting with him for the first time in 20 years quite recently. I feel like he does remember what happened.
And that was the reason he reconnected with you, was to ask,
Yeah.
do you remember that night?
Yes.
By
And
messenger and to get in touch. And
exactly.
yeah.
And a few awkward exchanges happened in a way that I just felt like, well, okay, because firstly, last time I saw him, he'd said he didn't remember this experience. But then now after we communicated, he said, look, man, if I said that, it might have been self-preservation, or I just didn't want to discuss it at the time. I said, okay.
Which
He
is fair enough.
reiterated he did remember. Not only he remembered, it had quite an impact on his life, and it was very life-changing. We didn't manage to get much further into it. It just felt like it wasn't an open conversation like this. It was more like, yeah, but nah, but yeah, but nah. It's like very, very kind of standoffish. So I don't know. Maybe the experience was terror for our mate. I don't know, man. I really don't.
Well, let's
Nice to find
see.
out.
Let's see. Well, maybe he'll come and have a chat with us and about
Maybe.
these experiences. Look, tonight's been a lot of fun for me to sort of dive into this story again with you, because obviously it's something we've talked about before, but to talk
Sure.
about it in this way, to share with other people, to get people talking about these type of experiences, I think
I'd love to hear if anyone else has had something similar to this.
Yes, me
Like,
too.
I think we're gonna spend the next few episodes talking about the Blue Mountains, because one of my instincts is that certain places attract certain energy, certain people, and certain outcomes, or they focus them more than others. And I've had that experience from traveling and having different experience in places. So I'd love to hear about, especially if anyone's got some mountain stories, but anything that's similar to this.
Man, it's so good to catch up tonight, and I guess we're looking forward to sharing more of these stories with you real soon.
If I could add one very last point to
Please
this,
do.
I'm discussing this tonight. That's, we're talking about 20 odd years after this has happened, 25 years. I don't feel weird about it in any way. Ironically, though, how to explain it? How to explain this? I feel if we can normalize these things. So this for me is like I can talk about this like I talk about my 21st birthday or when you and I went fishing, and it's that. But I fear a lot of people can't. So I think part of this discussion, getting people just to talk, forget the destination, forget the fucking destination. Open your mouth, share the story, because in the process of sharing the story comes the education, comes the experience, comes the understanding. And I think if we can encourage that in anyone out there, that would be wonderful. And the last point to that is I always imagine Godzilla would come out of the sky or things would happen. I realize how Hollywood my whole education had become by going through these stories and realizing it is kind of Godzilla, but not like I thought. It's very, very, very different and quite real. So looking forward to delve into more.
Well, here's to living the real life as a couple of meat bots on Hidden in Plain Sight. We look forward to seeing everyone on our next episode. If you want to hear more from us, hit like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you soon.
That's it.